Well, the Section 89 panel for Parliament is putting final touches on its Phala Phala report. The chair will hand it to the Parliamentary Speaker, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, in a ceremony at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. She appointed the former Chief Justice, Sandile Ngcobo, retired Judge Thokozile Masipa and Senior Advocate Mahlape Sello to the panel in September. Our reporter Erin Bates joins us now in our studio. Erin, good afternoon to you. Welcome to Newzroom Afrika, if I may say. Once the report is handed over to the Speaker, what happens then?
Well, next thing is, when do the MPs get it? Because, of course, they're going to have to deliberate over it before the 6th of December, when they're holding a special hybrid sitting to discuss its contents and then figure out the way forward. So we're all hanging on tenterhooks here until tomorrow. The handover ceremony, really a photo opportunity, and then it's to dive into the meat of that report and understand what Ngcobo and his colleagues have found.
If you look at the political pressure on this, I mean, the ATM, the African Transformation Movement, which brought this resolution, I'm sure is going to be in court by 10:01 tomorrow morning, demanding a release. I mean, we should see it fairly soon.
We should, and MPs are expecting that the Speaker won't dally in terms of handing that over to them. There is some talk about possibly looking into legal pursuit if the findings are not what some opposition parties want. And the DA, in fact, contemplating pushing for an ad hoc committee if indeed Ngcobo, Masipa and Sello decide that there isn't sufficient evidence before them on paper, because they've only worked on paper submissions, to recommend that Section 89 processes then proceed.
You make the point that they've only looked at paper. In other words, they're not allowed to call witnesses, right? So then what evidence are they actually looking at?
So they're looking at submissions from MPs that were called for after the committee, or the panel rather, was established. And then they're also looking at the President's answers to those submissions. And when ATM set up the special motion or the special request for an impeachment vote against the President, they had to substantiate their reasons for doing so. And here I think we may see questions and sort of the implications of this lacuna, this vacuum of facts around Phala Phala, months after Arthur Fraser charged into Rosebank Police Station with his statement and blew this whole scandal open.
So, in other words, it's actually quite difficult to know what they're going to base it on. But I presume, you know, that you would have facts that they need to be able to point to, that they would need to verify. Like lawyers always talk about evidence. This is the thing that could actually limit them. They could find it quite difficult to make a decision, I suppose.
They really could. And if you look at Fraser's statement back in late May, which he announced in June, he attached a few bits and pieces, some evidence. There was a map of Phala Phala. There was a photograph of the fence that had been cut open. There were some identity documents for the gang that was involved in that robbery of what Fraser alleged was between $4 and $8 million in cash. The President has insisted, including to the NEC, that it's a far lower figure of some 400,000 odd US dollars, which for most of us is still a pretty hefty figure. And that will be probably amongst the papers that Ngcobo and the panel will be looking at.
Well, I mean, one of the key actors here is the Hawks, because they're conducting an investigation. I understand that the head of the Hawks, General Godfrey Lebeya, spoke briefly about this today.
As you know, we are not reporting blow by blow on this investigation, but we can indicate that we have got now 68 statements that have been filed. Sometimes people ask me, and then I think we were around 50 or so. So at this stage we have got 68 statements. We are continuing with the investigation. We have got professional investigators, senior officers, actually led by a Lieutenant General, looking at this. And the prosecutors are also looking at this, so that whatever we are recording is in line with the law.
So, he tells us a bit about the process, doesn't tell us about what they found. I don't know how helpful that is. What are you expecting to happen in terms of what the opposition parties are going to say? Maybe even on Twitter, some people in the ANC.
Well, I do think it may well bring into scrutiny again the judiciary. As much as, two of the panelists are retired jurists, they come with their clout as legal minds, and that's actually in the rules for a Section 89 process, that you need to have people with legal expertise to review the facts as best they can and as best as the facts are that are available to them. And so, again, we run the risk of seeing politics and law butt heads against one another. I mean, interesting to hear there that, the Hawks have 69 69 statements, it sounds like they're also going on a lot of paperwork, and we may need to see boots on the ground doing more sort of substantial investigations. We need to know, does it include input from the Reserve Bank? Does it include input from SARS? What are the actual facts of what the dickens went on at Phala Phala in March 2020? We still don't know. And the fact that a sitting president has wads of US dollars in his furniture on his private business property is a serious question. And the lacuna, the silence, some say stoicism of the president in not talking about Phala Phala more bluntly is certainly providing political collateral to his foes.
Erin Bates, thank you very much indeed. Our reporter, of course, watching that. More live coverage of that tomorrow.